Hey y'all, so believe it or not, we are almost halfway through the year. I can't wrap my head around it because I feel like this year has just breezed by. And coming with that, I'm also almost at my 1 year wedding anniversary with Alex, which is again also bananas because what is happening with time? Like it's a social construct. It means nothing at this point, right? But what's wild is, like, I've really started to now that I've kind of put some time behind me with wedding stuff and, the divorce has been, like, done for a while now and, been married, that it really is looking at that next chapter, and I know the moms out there are like, "Look, you are newly postpartum, girl, like, you don't need to look at the next chapter." I'm balancing the now too. It's not like I'm looking at the next chapter and ignoring where I am. It's just that I think I'm finally finding my flow a little bit. Josie will be 5 months very soon, and she's developing so nicely, and she's so wonderful, and, we kind of, have her figured out enough so that when she changes again, we've got space to do that, and more than anything, I don't know if I've shared, but we have a full-time live-in support. It feels weird to call her a nanny because she really is like, another mother to me at this point, and we call her she's like a grandma, to the babies, and it's interesting because childcare is such an issue in the States. Like, so many of us really struggle with being breadwinners. A lot of women are both a breadwinner and we are responsible for paying for childcare, and childcare is a mortgage. And this was something we thought about. We were planning on having the full-time support in the early months to aid in my recovery, if you've listened to, like, the birth story chat and all that. And recently we got back from a family trip and we were planning to have sort of our conversation with our live-in and say, "Hey, it's been a real privilege, to have you." And y'all, make no mistake, I recognize that the conversation I'm having is like a 1% type thing. Most people cannot have even the flexibility to adjust their money to make it stack properly to be able to afford to live in. And it was an adjustment for us. Make no like, this economy hits me too. So we absolutely had to plan accordingly, save, move, and work a little harder to be able to have room for this, expense. But it wasn't something I could do long term. And we sat down and I said, "Hey, this is a conversation that I've been dreading. I've been praying regularly, for us to be able to have you stay longer if you were open to it," because she did come with flexibility, kind of like 6-month contract, and then, going forward and all that, it was negotiable. And, I told her outright, and this is, just sort of like first mini lesson in this story is, God talks about articulating things, plainly with clarity, write it down and make it plain, speak in specificity, don't just tiptoe around it, right? Come before him as a child and ask for what you want. And I got to tell you, I've been saying it frequently out loud. I really wish that, that she could stay. Like, Josie's doing so well with her. We're so comfortable. That vibe of, like, you have someone in your home and you just don't want it, even like your parents, right? Like, I've got like a window. Like, I can only have my parents around for so long before I'm kind of like, there's a reason I don't live with them. You know what I mean? Like, it's a real thing. And just we live together so nicely. Like, we have a vibe that just fits. It's a flow. And when we came back from this trip, I like missed her and I missed Josie. And it felt like, it was just like family vibes, right? And so, I sat her down and, with Alex, and we were just kind of like, this is tough for us to say, but, we think we're getting to a point where, we have to start shifting, some of our financial priorities, and this is what this is looking like. And when I tell you, the prayer that had been on my heart for weeks prior was, if she was open to any type of flexibility, it would be like a dream. And y'all, praise report, she's staying, right? She is staying, and this actually leads to, like, the whole point of this chat, about, like, kinda getting back out there and all that, but, you know, she sat across from us and told us, "Look, I love your family, and I love this work, and I love being here, and this is the thing I wanna extend to you, and I just want you to hold this statement because it's the theme of our talk today that I think has become really important." She said, "You get to a certain age where the things that hold weight in your life are not solely financial. And it doesn't have anything to do with your financial status, your income bracket, or whether or not you're in poverty or, doing exceptionally well. You start realizing that not having to compromise your comfort, your peace of mind, and your values is something that is priceless. Y'all, I have been chewing on that statement all day. Like, when she said that, I mean, I was sobbing. I was bursting into tears because we always have had a family value system of anyone who's in our home, we treat like family. Like, we love them, we just do our best to just be, and to my detriment. I'm just gonna say, like, let's be completely honest. I've had employees that I've really struggled with boundary issues because they felt overly familiar with me, right? That is, I think a lot of us who are entrepreneurs and run our own businesses are familiar with that, where, you have employees that start to look at you as like a parental figure, or you have team members that have a fuzzy line, it gets a little bit gray between what is expected of you as an employer versus what is expected of you feeling more friend-like. And it's tough because I think some of that is cultural. I was raised, to really try to my best to help people, and part of it is my nature, maybe trauma driven, where I'm always trying to like care for people. I'm a fixer, so I'm always working on that. But nevertheless, I think I found a really good balance, after years of not getting it right, after years of having employees, feel like their feelings were hurt because I acted as a boss in a situation they were expecting a friend, or, and then having times where I was taken advantage of, or people who didn't appreciate, what I had to offer, and I expected more when they deserved less, and I've now gotten to a place where I think I have a really good sense around how to care for people as they deserve to be treated, while also making sure that I'm not deprioritizing my own well-being and peace. And I think I executed that really well here. I absolutely love this woman, and I care for her as I would care for my mother, but we also have an understanding that I think we've all been able to respect and honor around making sure that she has the comfort, freedom, flexibility, and peace of mind to feel as if she is in her own home and caring for people that she loves like family, while also having clarity around what we need to have done, every day. Like, we are all in here. Basically, it's the thing that you may have heard me or Allie, my daughter, when she came in, my teen, talk about. We operate as a team. This concept around team has been transformative because one of the best things about really operating as a core team is that issue of compromise, that issue of being there in a way that surpasses money is everything. So back to the story. She says this and I break down in tears. I start sobbing. I'm like, I can't even believe that, one, something that was articulated in my heart is happening. And I think a lot of you who understand the childcare, both financial burden as well as obligation, right? Which, if it doesn't follow through, you're the person who's there, can understand the absolute magic of having basically the Ferrari of childcare, at the cost of a Kia, maybe a Honda, right? Like, this, it's unheard of. And I don't know, it's just, I still am in awe and in shock of, like, one, how God has met all of us where we are, to make sure that we come together in the right way. But it also took a lot of showing up in spaces and in ways that and growth, that I didn't anticipate. So that leads me to this compromise piece. So when I say that I am now ready to be out in the world, one of the things that I'm talking about is, I don't call it after 40, call it delivering a baby unmedicated, but y'all, earmuffs, headphones, turn down the warning, but like, I don't give a fuck at all. Like she doesn't care. Like, what are you going to do to me? Like, I'm at this point right now where it's like, you know, I have goals, I have obligations, and I also have values and opinions. I've reached a certain age where I know right from wrong. Like, I know what it is. I know what's going on. I can call things to its face. When I have someone come to and try to play in my face about certain issues, I have no problem saying it is exactly what it is. And I'm not willing to compromise what I know to be right or best for my family because somebody else wants to play games. And that is very much where I am. We have conversations about the current administration and some of the stuff that they're pulling. And, I always try to stay balanced here. And that's the thing, is I want you to hear me when I say I have room to hear anybody. I have room to engage in respectful, honest, thorough, educated conversation. But make no mistake, no one's going to play in my face. So conversations that we're going to have here, which, you guys listened last week, we had a very honest conversation about this incredible dynamic woman, Jessica Frew, who was in a relationship with a gay man for 7 years and had a child and learned so much about herself and built a beautiful family in the long run. But, in that conversation, I was like, girl, like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you knew better, right? And she definitely walked us through her decision-making process, and that was gold. So if you didn't hear that last week, listen. But that's very much where I am right now. I don't wanna work without compromise, and I don't want you to either. If you're saying to yourself, "Well, I need more money," or "I need a job that, like, values me more," or "I want to make sure that, I get on big stages," or "I have that book deal," or, we all have these desires, that some are just echoed from social media, but some are really on our heart. How bad do you want that? Like, how bad do you want that? I hear people all the time talk about wanting to be a billionaire. Do you? Like, do you really wanna be a billionaire? What if that cost you your family? What if that cost you your health? What does it look like? When I look at what's happening in the sort of political space and, in the fame space right now, people are so willing to do whatever for a dollar. And it's not the flex you think it is. You know what I mean? It's not the flex you think it is. Selling products that don't actually help people just because you wanna get on the, fancy pants snake oil bandwagon because there's a buck there, it's not the flex you think it is. You know, One of the things that people have always asked me about for years is, "Nicole, how have you lost weight?" I used to be 100 pounds heavier. I've managed to keep this weight off for over 6 years. People have knocked down my door in seeing my transformation and how I've maintained it to say, "Nicole, what have you done? What is the system? What is the supplement? What's the whatever?" And we live in an age now where literally I could be doing a live broadcast. People could see my drapes behind me and be like, "Are those from Crate and Barrel?" They will interrupt my sentence, ask me where I got my curtains. Like, people feel entitled to every aspect of you. And I've never talked about it. And here's why. If I talk about my weight, one, it's none of your business. Like, that is the truth of it. People have conversations about other people's bodies, like the fact that I keep it quiet is around secrecy and not privacy. Those are two different things. I like things can be private, meaning it is none of your business and never was and never will be. And it doesn't mean it's secret because of shame. I am not ashamed of anything I've done for my body. Make no mistake, if I want plastic surgery, I'm gonna get it. If I want Botox, I'm gonna get it. If I want fillers, I'm gonna get it. If I finish breastfeeding and I have to tuck my boobs into my waistband because these things are hanging and swinging, I will get them fixed because it's my business, my prerogative, my body. And people can say, "Oh, Nicole, I can't believe you would do that. Why aren't you happy with the way you are?" I'm happy with it. Sounds like you have a problem with it, right? And that's very much my energy around it. But the reason why I've never broken down the weight loss thing is one, sis isn't a doctor. Can we talk about how many people, and we're gonna be having guests later on to really hammer into this because it's something I'm really passionate about. The unqualified speaking on things that require qualifications and doing that while compromising just to make a dollar. So part of why I have not talked about my weight loss is because I'm not a doctor. Please, 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 why are you going to people who do not have the qualifications to ask them for solutions to problems that you have? If you're a person who can't figure out your own weight loss because you lack the training, tools, resources, and background to do so, why would you go to someone else who just maybe had done the thing that you want to do, but also lacks the training, qualification, resources, and background? Just because they look a certain way, please stop it. Okay? That ain't it. Don't you all remember growing up in the 90s when people would look at us and they would say, "Oh, you're overweight." And you would say, "What do you mean?" And they would base it on your height. Don't you remember those days? Listen, I'm a black girl. We come in a very specific build, Not to say we're a monolith, but we have a propensity for curves, okay? Much to the delight of my husband. And I say this to say that it was nuts growing up and being 13 years old, being like a D cup, wearing like a size 12, which I still wear, right? So talk about the stability of your weight, right? And wearing that's like my baseline size is like a 10, 12, and being at that size and being told, "Oh, sis, you are morbidly obese." Morbidly obese where? Because wherever morbidly obese is, where it cannot be located is around where my waist is, which also could not be located, okay? Sis was snatched. She was shaped like the letter S. And they're out here talking to me saying, "Oh no, you are overweight because you are this height and thus you must be this size." Y'all, I spent so much of my life chasing after, "Oh, I should be 135 pounds." That is the weight that I'm supposed to be based on being at the time, I think I was like 5'2" or whatever the little flow chart was they used to use in like the 90s, early 2000s that like tells you how much you weigh before you even come in and get on a scale. I thought I was supposed to be 135 pounds. Y'all, When I ended up getting a DEXA scan, which is like you go in, they basically weigh your bones, right? Away from everything else. So they go in and they're like, okay, your skeleton weighs this much, your fat weighs this much, your muscles weigh this much. Y'all, my skeletal system alone, just my bones, weigh 133 pounds. Not they were telling me that I needed to be 135 pounds and I would have been actively deceased. Okay. I am literally big boned. Okay. And they're out here telling me that I'm morbidly obese because I didn't match a chart that was created by white men for white people. There was no consideration around my build. There was no consideration around my background. There was no consideration around my health. And I say all this to let you know that this same thing has taken a new form, right? People are willing to compromise their values and what they know to be right. Because make no mistake, when I look online and I see some of these influencers that are shilling products that are going to people who look just like them, meaning we're selling wellness solutions, we're selling health solutions, we're selling things that are used by the 1% by wealthy white women, and we're selling them out there as solutions for everyone. And if for some reason you're not able to access them, listen, most people cannot access a $3,000 cancer scan. They can't afford it. And the fact that they can't afford it doesn't mean they don't care about their health. It doesn't mean they're deprioritizing things that matter. It means they're prioritizing food in their fridge. And doing something like that is so wildly unfair because what happens is we're making it seem like people don't value the right things. Everybody, and this is like, I'm not even kidding, this is really what matters is everybody wants to be well. Everyone wants family that is thriving. Everyone wants to look and feel their best. It's why sis gets Botox. She's going to come and look her best, the best she's got to offer. It's why I did everything I needed to do when I sat down with my doctor to figure out my best weight plan. But the compromise part comes in where I never sold a weight plan. This idea that just because you have visibility on social media and you've managed to find a solution that works for you means that it automatically needs to go into something that you sell is crazy. It is outright crazy. Just because you managed to make it work for you and you did it right once or twice does not an expert make. Say it again for the people in the back. Just because it worked for you one or two times does not mean you have a solution that is repeatable, replicable, or result driven for the masses. Who is lying to you? Since when do clicks and views equal a degree? It's delusional. And so it puts people in a position now where they're consuming your content thinking that you're an expert around something because it managed to work for you once or twice. But lo and behold, you're also selling that solution. In any other world, in corporate world, in any other planet, that is called a conflict of interest. How dare you speak out against something else that has years of data, years of science, years of actionable, proven information that has been studied across industries, right? Across body types, right? Across different spaces, global industries to say, no, this is a solution that works because it worked for me in my house in Montana on my body. Please, no, ma'am, inaccurate. And further demonizing other things. Y'all, I have to tell you, having reached a certain age, right? I'm a seasoned chicken, not a spring chicken. It's not worth it to me. What money is worth putting harm out into the world? What money is worth and what pride is required for me instead of saying, look, I don't know, or I've tapped an expert with credentials. Okay. I say that in caps, underlined. An expert with credentials that spans a range, right? Not just credentials that I like. Confirmation bias is real, okay? Just because I like what they're saying because it sounds good to my ears or it sounds novel or new does not mean it's correct, right? An expert that has actual credentials and has done this in a way that has influenced and changed and gotten results over several years, if not decades, amongst a wide range of people. If you say, oh man, I have thousands of clients, but all your thousands of clients are 35-year-old white women in the upper food bracket, meaning they have access and more money to be able to afford better things, then we don't know if your product will work for a 50-year-old Black woman who is, living below the poverty line. And so you can't say this is the ultimate solution if it has not been tested across is this not a no-brainer? Sometimes I feel like I live in crazy pants land, right? How many of y'all are saying to yourself, it feels a little weird because It seems like all the things that are being sold as solutions are coming from people who may not have a wide range of experiences. It's a real thing. And then when somebody criticizes it or looks at it and says, "Hey, I'd like to issue a challenge. Can you explain this further?" It becomes, "Well, is it not important to you to be healthy? Is it not important to you to be well? Is your well-being not the biggest priority?" It is. But this can't be the end all be all. And so I say all this to say that I've tapped some experts that I'm going to be having come in to provide a different look at wellness, right? So to talk about the things that might be within reach for the average person, people who are coming in that are not in a position of compromise, meaning they're not selling anything. The only thing they're selling are actual solutions that are scientific based and properly tested. I'm going to be having conversations with people here that are going to be able to say to you, look, here's some ways that you can be empowered to make decisions for yourself that are based on data and info and research that is tested that might actually apply to your situation. Because it's important to have that perspective too. It's not just about what's popular. It's not just about what's aspirational, right? It's not the people that you admire and that you think, gosh, they just seem to have it all. Maybe if I tried this skin cream, I'll have it too. No, it's about talking to people who have been doing the research to create real change in a mass way across this world. And that's how I'm approaching everything I'm doing. I'm a mom and I care a lot about where I get my data and my research. So a simple example is these diapers I use. So I use a very expensive Fancy Pants brand of diapers. I'm not mentioning their name because I've reached out to them to see if they'll give me money to mention their name. See? That's called being clear, right? That's being transparent, right? But they're great diapers and I love them, right? And initially I was going to use like your regular Huggies, like it's whatever, I just want to keep the poop encased, right? I don't want a disaster. But I decided to try these diapers because I saw what all the hype was about. I was like, I'm just going to buy like a set and see. Y'all, they're actually different. They're actually different. They actually are better. But I didn't try them just because so and so told me it's the only thing to do. And they've shamed me into saying, if I don't use these diapers for my kids, I'm a bad mother who doesn't care. So I need to fork out $100, a package in a month, to be able to cover diapers. No, I tried them because I said, are they actually good? And one of the things I built my brand around is not just offering you solutions that work, that are effective, even if it is the high end thing, but also putting that in context, right? So with these diapers, one thing that we said as a family was, look, if we need to save money or if we're in a shift in the economy where we want to be smart about it, these diapers move to overnight status. During the day when we all have the ability to do more frequent changes, we can use a brand that is still high quality, but maybe not as high priced. And then we'll use the more expensive diapers in the evening. Why? Because a little A and a little bit of B. And I really think that we've gotten to a place now where everything is so right or wrong, so blue or red, so polarized that we're forgetting that the truth lies in the middle. The truth lies in the middle. And anytime you find someone saying things with a ferocity and a fire behind, this is wrong. How could you do that? Who would ever do that? What does this mean about you? Whenever you are hearing something like that, understand that you are drifting far from the middle and you're now getting to a point of extreme, which means that you need to do your independent research to find out where the middle actually is, because nobody is all right and nobody is all wrong. And if they're using something that may be a speck of truth, it is your job to examine that to figure out what actually works. And that's what I did with these diapers. And I can't wait to tell you about them if they sign the deal. Or if you slide me a DM. If you send me a message, I'll tell you too, because I'm not trying to like gatekeep either, right? We're actually friends. And that's very much where I am right now in this season. So I'm excited to share it with you because you're going to see even more fiery content, right? Me having someone on who's talking about their relationship, and saying like, oh my gosh, I was in this relationship with this gay man, but, I'm a Christian woman and I grew up in this, segment. If you guys are familiar with the, LDS, colloquially known as the Mormon world, there's a lot of criticism of that community. Some of it may be just, a lot of it, I think, maybe perspective driven because I have friends in that community and I've experienced nothing but good things. But, that being said, having someone on there to provide a different view is huge. So I'm really excited. This is just sort of a check-in and a catch-up to let you know what's coming and to make sure that if you are not subscribing, now is the time. You do not want to miss a chat. Don't just catch this when it goes viral and you see the clip. Make sure that you're the first one to be able to talk about it and the one sharing it. Tell your friends. In a time and in a season where I think balanced voices that are providing clear-cut, honest guidance in a place where sometimes it can feel like it's difficult to find that. I'm proud to be that person and that friend in your ear who's pointing to what makes sense and not just what makes me money. Okay? That is where I want to be in your world. And the conversations we're having may make you uncomfortable. But that's the point, because it's in that discomfort that we start learning. Another great guest that we're going to be having on in the next couple of weeks that I'm really excited about, and this is just a tiny tease, is a trans activist. Now, I know a lot of people have their perspectives around, LGBTQIA, especially the trans community. I mean, it is a hot topic that people really feel passionate about. Even people who consider themselves to be very progressive seem to draw the line at all things trans, and so I want to bring someone on because a lot of people have these strong opinions and don't actually know anyone who's trans and haven't spoken to anybody who's trans, and they don't know anything about that world, about how people have dealt with discovery and navigation. And above all else, the fact that, no matter how you identify, sexually or gender related, you are very much still a person who is in this world and not going anywhere. So what does it look like to actually meet someone for the first time who identifies in this way and lives in this way, and hear them out around what they think, how they feel, and not just base our opinions on the middleman, which is a conversation that's happening in some pod space, or happening on some YouTube, or a conversation that's happening in, a social media or in a chat forum, and actually going straight to the horse's mouth and me asking the questions you want to know. Everything from, why is this? What does this mean? How did you find this out? What do you think about what's happening politically? Are you scared? Just really asking these questions, because if we can get to the point where we're finding the humanity in each other, then I think maybe we can bridge this divide and build a world where we all feel more comfortable. But again, the key is without compromise. So yes, as I've always said, I get ads, right? I get paid for my time. Why? Because these diapers are expensive. I told you, pay attention, right? But I also want to let you know that I will never compromise any of this for the sake of $1, because it's just not worth it. And above all else, you deserve better. So if you aren't subscribing, if you haven't shared, well, guess what? The gloves are off and it's about to get really, really good.